continue to be a nice steady seller? Right. Or are we going to need to be coming out with new products continually? So, I mean, it's kind of a really double-edged sword, these quilt-alongs, where, you know, you make something and you spend all this time doing it and designing it and focus and all this stuff. And then it could be a dog, you know, and that is risk. That is business risk. And it is scary.
And have you had that happen? Have you had an experience where the product you thought was or the project you thought was going to be awesome and it just didn't sell?
Yes. Yes. I've had that experience now twice. Yeah. It is crushing. Yeah. It is very hard. It is even harder to continue to be upbeat and post videos and be like, come and join this quilt along when it's literally an echo chamber. But I have had that experience now. And it, you know, and to say it's happened twice, I mean, it happened, you know, and it's kind of like I've started to pick out and find patterns, you know, like what makes one quilt better than another, what seems to appeal to people more, you know, and you know, the one good thing I can say is now that I have done this for now 5 years, I have this backlist. So previous quilt-alongs, Building Blocks is a quilt-along we did in 2014, is our most popular one. It was a rock star. We still have that pattern available. The videos are still up online. Yeah. It can still sell. Moving forward, there's less risk.
Right. And it's interesting because I'm on your website now, and it seems like you get a number of bumps with it. You get the original one, and then you get people continuing to use it, so that it isn't like it just goes away. Then you're repackaging it. Are you repackaging the videos once the videos are done as well? Am I right with that?
No, they stay up online and free. They stay up and I don't, it's just so much more work to try and pull the videos down and then do something else with them. And then that would be a traffic source that would go away. So I see that as a bad use of my time.
Got it.
So instead we leave the videos up doing their job. They're driving traffic to that product. And then that product continues to sell. So, I mean, it is helpful. And that has helped when I have a less popular quilt along, it helps to mitigate, you know, that loss, basically. You know, you can kind of go into it going, okay, well, we might make this much and cross our fingers that we do that well. And then, you know, if things don't end up working out, you know, in years past, I've kind of had a, not necessarily a negative attitude about it, but I certainly could have used some work on my attitude, I should say right now. And so this year, going into this year, I was like, I need to stop thinking that this is going to be easy, because it's not. Running a business and supporting, we now support 2 families, my family, and my dad works for me now too. So we support 2 families, and that is going to be a continual challenge, no matter how long you've been in business. And we've now been in business for going on 8 years. So even being in business as long as we have been, there are still things that are changing. YouTube is changing the rules on how things get found on videos. And, you know, things are always going to adjust, and you're always going to need to pivot and shift. And the way I look at it is, this is a challenge, accept the challenge and keep going. And that's my word for the year's challenge for 2018. And it's kind of like taking on that word. I have stopped expecting things to be easy and instead accepted, I want this and I'm willing to work for it. And I'm willing to keep trying even when what I make isn't, you know, even when I love what I make isn't as popular as something I might not like as much, you know?
Yeah. Interesting. So tell me about your typical day. What does your day look like? Do you have a typical day?
Yeah. I do have a pretty good system set up now, which is really nice. You know, Josh and I kind of flip out who gets up with James and takes him to the bus stop. So on my weeks, I'll get up a little bit earlier and do some yoga. I do about 15 minutes of yoga, and then I'll be in a really good mood when my son gets up about 6:15. So then we hang out, make him breakfast. We try and play a game of chess in the morning if I can convince him to sit down and play with me. He doesn't like to lose, and I've started beating him, so it's really fun. So we do that, take him to the bus stop. I get back, and I have been working on writing now for the last 6 months. where I'm always working on a book, whether it's a nonfiction book or a fiction book. Right now I'm working on a fiction novel.
Cool.
And yeah, so I sat down and I have about an hour and a half or so from about 7:20 until about 8:30 or so that I write, and I don't do anything else. I have kind of like a little ritual. I'll make myself a cup of tea, get some pecans and sit down at the table, and I'm not allowed to do anything else. No checking email, no getting on Facebook, nothing like that. Just write. And that's been really good. I love having that as a habit, and I know that I will produce books a lot faster for that. Uh-huh. So then Josh gets up about 8:30 and makes coffee, and we enjoy a cup of coffee and kind of usually chat a little bit about business, just what we're talking, what's going on that particular day, whether it's a newsletter day or, I need to get a post up, or, he does a lot of customer service stuff on the site. He does actually all of the customer service and all of the order packing, and then all of the ordering for our business. So if he's got an issue or something like that, he'll usually tell me about it then. Then my dad shows up about 9:00, and Dad does all of our fabric prep and cutting. So if we are working on a project, if I'm starting a quilt, then Dad's coming in to work on that. He's also learned digitizing. So he is digitizing embroidery designs based off of the designs that that I shared, the free motion quilting design. So he stitches those out. So like right now today, Dad is stitching out embroidery designs that he edited last night. And he's also steaming some batting so it can be basted up in a quilt. So, it's kind of like every day kind of changes for Dad. But, there's always kind of a fluctuation as what's coming through. So then first thing, I'll get on the computer, check email, and do a blog post, whatever I've prepped up for that day. I'll have the video already ready up on YouTube, and I'll just have to do titles and thumbnails and that kind of stuff and get that up, and spend a little bit of time online, just kind of checking in on everywhere. And then I really try and get off the computer almost immediately if it's a post day, and go out and do something, film, design, make up my mind about something. I try and make a decision on something at least once a day, because that is most of my job, is just making up my mind on something. And whether it's, okay, we're going to do this quilt along, and here's the order, and here's the videos, and here's this list of videos that I need to make, and then go out and film them. So I have a cottage called the Crafty Cottage that we built in 2015. It's just for filming videos. And I have a sewing machine set up out there and camera mounts for my cameras. And so I just take my materials outside to film videos on my home sewing machine, because once Dad started working for us, the house was just too loud.
That's really interesting.
Sorry?
I said that's really interesting. Hold on just a second. I have a beep going on. Yeah, I love you put up the stuff on how you made the shed. I totally love it. I loved the documentation of how you turned the shed into a studio. It's incredible.
Yeah, that was such a good investment. I would say of all the investments I've made into my business and quilting in general, that was one of the best investments I ever made. My only regret is I wish I'd made it bigger, but honestly, it fit perfectly between the trees that we had. Unfortunately, some of those trees had to come down last summer because they were rotted and old. But I am always now looking at my yard going, where can I put another shed? Where can I put another crafty cottage? It kind of gets a little addictive starting to put up new buildings. That's great. So I usually go film, and I try and take a break for lunch because I am definitely a food person. If I don't eat, I get really angry and kind of agitated. So I try and come in and eat lunch, and then through the end of the day, designing, finishing up whatever I'm working on. If I'm filming, if I'm kind of in a pattern of filming, then I'll go back outside and keep filming and making more videos. If I'm in a pattern of writing, I'll get back to that. If it's a podcast day, like, an interview day, then I will usually do that interview and then try and kind of just chill out and relax, because the conversation and socializing and stuff can really be tiring.
It is.
So I have found that those days in particular, I'm probably not going to be able to go back out and film, but I can do some writing, or just kind of keep up my social media presence or something like that. And that usually works out pretty good.
That is an amazing day. But you can sort of see your day on the website because it's incredibly full and productive. And there's no way that you could have that kind of business without having that kind of day.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if I tried to work a job or even traveling and teaching doesn't work, because whenever I have something on the horizon, like a teaching gig, it's always there in the back of my mind. Like, I need to go pull those quilts, I need to pack up this thing, or I'm not going to be able to work on that for this length of time while I'm gone. It's just a distraction. And over the years, I have tried continually to incorporate traveling into my life. And every single time it has caused us to lose money and been an unsuccessful venture and really detrimental in a lot of ways, because, your focus is the most powerful thing that you have. What you are thinking about and concentrating on and moving forward with is the most powerful thing. And so ultimately I had to just decide, I'm putting that away. I'm not going to open that box up again. I'm not even going to question it. The answer is no. And it's a kind no. Thank you so much for wanting me to come, but that's just not how my business runs. I'd rather teach everyone than teach 20 people.
Yeah. Right. No, I get that. That's really interesting. What do you think? I want to ask you some IP questions before we end, but I want to ask a little bit about your demographics. Do you have a sense of who is watching your videos and who is buying your products? Sure.
Yeah. So we can see demographics on YouTube really easily, and it is women 55 plus. And it's a wonderful audience of really, really kind people.
Yeah.
I don't really have a younger audience. I know a lot of modern quilters have a 30 to 40 something kind of audience. And I really don't see that as much in my groups and in watching on YouTube. I find I get and I intentionally attract a lot of beginners. I want beginning quilters to come and learn with me. I design my quilt-alongs specifically for beginning quilters because that is the audience that is interested, that is enthusiastic, and that might not have bought everything already. Once you get into quilting, you've pretty much bought the tools that you need. You kind of get settled in your ways. And, I did a lot of trial and error, basically, of trying to create quilt-alongs and projects for more advanced quilters. And ultimately, I found that they were much more likely to reverse engineer something I would do, which is insulting, but it happens.
Yeah.
And the beginners, though, were much more willing to buy a pattern and much more happy to participate and quilt along with us. And so that became my audience, and that's who I intentionally try and attract. Of course, the free machine quilting designs, anyone can use them.
Yeah.
And I certainly, when I got started, I considered myself an intermediate quilter, and I thought that's who I was going to attract. And it was a shock to me when I started realizing a lot of beginners were finding my videos and wanting to quilt them out too. So, I think that just finding your audience is really the most important thing. And that's who I figured out is the best for us right now.
Interesting. And it seems like if you have a base of beginners, then you build a loyal following because you're their beginning teacher. Is that what you found?
Yes. And it's actually kind of funny. I have so many quilters that have joined us for all of our quilt-alongs, that have been stitching out with us for now like 5 years. And every once in a while I'm like, are you sure you're going to join in again? I mean, like, don't you know this stuff already? And it's so funny because, whether it's they like me or they like my instruction or they still feel like they have a lot to learn.
Yeah.
I found this too. I would teach a couple local classes here in Concord, North Carolina. I like to teach there. And I would find the same students would show up in class over and over again. And, and I was kind of like, am I just not teaching this well? And then I realized, no, I I make them feel good.
Yeah.
And people want to be around people that make them feel good. And that was actually, really comforting to realize that and say, okay, they're having a good experience. They wanted that experience again.
Yeah.
So that's why they're coming back to class. So that's
really
good.
Interesting. I like that. All right. In the last few minutes,